Hey everyone, how you all doing? Welcome back to my channel. I am so excited for today's vlog because we're finally doing my 6 of Crows reading vlog. So in March I uploaded a really long spoiler-filled reading vlog for the Grisha trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. I'll make sure to leave a link down below for you to go check it out. I know it's really long, but I'm really proud of it and I hope you guys will go watch it if you have not yet already. But while filming that vlog, I decided that I needed to do a reread of 6 of Crows, and I also wanted to read King of Scars and Rule of Wolves, even though I always thought that I would never read that duology. But stay tuned, I will be doing that reading vlog hopefully next month. But we are here for 6 of Crows. But I'm literally so excited to reread this series. I read 6 of Crows for the first time in 2022 as a part of my book club, and then I read Crooked Kingdom at the beginning of last year, and I enjoyed this duology, but I wasn't obsessed with it. I actually enjoyed Crooked Kingdom more than 6 of Crows, which I feel like is an unpopular opinion, but I do feel like it's because I struggle with high fantasy, and by the time we got to Crooked Kingdom I was already familiar with the world, whereas in 6 of Crows I was brand new to this world and everything going on because I did not read the Grisha trilogy beforehand. So I was going in completely blind into that book. So maybe this time, since I've now read this duology before, I've read the Grisha trilogy, I've watched the TV show, maybe I'll have a different experience with this duology. But yeah, I've just been hankering to get back to these characters because every time I saw them in the show I got so giddy and excited and it was like actually ridiculous. So I'm so curious to reread this duology. So I'm about to sit down and read a little bit of 6 of Crows. I gotta be honest with you, I am not looking forward to reading that opening chapter, the Juiced chapter. What is this? I remember reading it and being like, I don't know what to do with this. If I remember correctly, this chapter doesn't really have anything to do with the rest of the book, so I'm honestly really not looking forward to rereading it. But I looked at it and it's like 14 pages, so hopefully it won't be that hard to get through, and then we get an Inez chapter, so that will be a nice reward. So I'm gonna sit down and get started with this, and I am just honestly so excited. Okay, so I just finished the first chapter, and for some reason that's not really what I remembered it being. I don't know why I sound surprised when my memory is literally garbage and I often misremember things, but I remembered Juiced and I remembered Anya, but like I didn't remember the actual like circumstances of what was going on. So it's not that this first chapter doesn't have relevance to anything else, because otherwise why would it be there? We do get the very first introduction to Jurda Parem, but we just never see Juiced again, I'm pretty sure. But so far I think I enjoyed that opening chapter more this time than I did last time. Still don't have many feelings on it, but I think I understand it better this time with all of my other knowledge. Freddie Carter, I swear to God, was the perfect casting for Kaz. He was a collection of hard lines and tailored edges, sharp jaw, lean build, wool coat snug across his shoulders. Like, that is Freddie Carter. I'm so mad that they cancelled this show and didn't get the 6 of Crows spinoff, because this cast was perfection. Like, they couldn't have asked for a better, more accurate casting. Jesper too is just so perfect. Like, Kit Young, I swear nobody could have played Jesper like Kit Young. Like, I can so perfectly envision him as Jesper when I'm reading this whole part. Like, he literally just kissed his guns and said, "Take good care of my babies." Like, if you cannot picture Kit Young doing this exact moment, like, oh, he's perfect. I just wanted to pause to talk about the cast of the Crows in Shadow and Bone. I'm probably going to be comparing this less to the show than I did for the Grisha trilogy vlog, because obviously the Crows are more so characters in Shadow and Bone rather than following their plots until we get to Crooked Kingdom, so maybe I'll compare it more when we get there. But I just want to talk about how I think my obsession with the cast of the show, the casting of the Crows, is going to make me enjoy this 10 times more than I did the first time, because I just feel so connected to that cast, and I think that they made me like the characters so much more, which I already enjoyed the characters the first time I read these books, because honestly I couldn't really tell you much about what happens in these books, but I remember the characters and I remember loving the characters. I remember loving Kaz, loved Kaz and Inej, loved Jesper, loved Wyland, though he doesn't come in till later, and Nina. Like, the characters are what I was really here for, and so just knowing that like this perfect cast made me love and appreciate these characters 10 times more just has me really excited to re-experience all of these book moments with them while envisioning the cast from the show. Like, they're so perfect. Like, I'm so clearly picturing Kit Young in my head in this scene, and I'm just obsessed with it. I love them so much. This line just killed me. Inej always wondered if he'd sounded that way as a little boy, if he'd ever been a little boy. Like, rereading this, now knowing Kaz's entire backstory and everything that he went through when he was a little boy, and knowing that the things that he went through when he was young is what has turned him into this like stone person, like, oh. I could just cry because this is so sad rereading this. I have to admit that having read the Grisha trilogy and having watched the Shadow and Bone show does give a lot more context to the things going on in this book. I don't think that reading this before everything else dampened my enjoyment of this book, but it is nice that I know specifically what amplifiers are. And then on the next page they're explaining the small science, and I know more context on these things now. That's making it easier to understand, so I think it's giving me a bit of a better appreciation for this book. Please, my darling Inej, treasure of my heart, won't you do me the honor of acquiring me a new hat? It's the my darling Inej, treasure of my heart for me. Do we find out at any point when Nina was at the Little Palace? Because, forgive me if I'm mistaken, but I don't remember ever seeing Nina at the Little Palace. So how long has she been in Ketterdam? Did I miss something? Probably. Okay, so Nina has been in Ketterdam for a year. So my next question is, what's the timeline between the Grisha trilogy and this one? Like, how much time has passed between the two? I love Nina so much. Are you aware that I could wiggle my fingers and make you wet your trousers? Easy heart render. I like these trousers. I love that Nina doesn't like really like Kaz, and I like that dynamic in the show as well. I live for the Crows. I love them so much. Although so far there hasn't been that much Jesper, which I feel like I don't remember, and I like flipped ahead and we don't get a Jesper chapter until like chapter 8, which is like after part 2, and that's just crazy to me. Okay, so we just hit part 2, Servant and Lever, and so far I've realized just how bad my memory is. Like I said in one of the first clips, I remember the beginning opening up with Juiced and like it wasn't necessary. Obviously it is, because it introduces Jurda Parem and all of that. It's just, he's not like a main character in the series, so it feels odd that like we open up first chapter with somebody that like we don't know, we're not really gonna get to know. I feel like I did remember the whole betrayal of what's his face, Big Bolliger. I don't know how to say his name, but I feel like I remember there being a betrayal of sorts and Kaz finds him out. But I feel like I didn't fully remember Kaz being approached by Van Eyck, or like taken by Van Eyck to tell him about the Jurda Parem and like going to the ice court. But what I really did not remember is the whole Matthias part. I feel like it's coming back to me as I'm reading it, but for some reason I had it in my head that we didn't see Matthias until the end of this book, which just doesn't make any sense. I don't know why my brain went there, because I feel like I do remember seeing him all throughout this book, so I don't know what my brain was doing when I thought that, when I picked up this book yesterday, but we're about to get into Matthias's first point of view. He's just closed his hands over Nina's throat. Drama, 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 but we're about to start his chapter. And then I'm pretty sure the next chapter is Jesper. I've missed my Jesper baby. I definitely did not remember any of the other members of the dregs. If I get anything wrong when I talk about world building, please forgive me, because I'm barely understanding things. Like, I've got one like little half brain cell up here that is just trying to hold on for dear life. Like right now there's the other person with them who is gonna like take Matthias's spot. Muzzin. Didn't really remember him at all. And then like, you know, just anybody else that they're mentioning that is outside of Kaz, Nina, Nej, Jesper, Matthias, and like the antagonist kind of people like Vanek and Pekka Rollins. Obviously I remember Pekka Rollins. Besides that, I just don't really remember any of the other characters. Like, I'm gonna be real honest, the main thing that I remember from this book is Kaz ripping out somebody's eyeball. That's about it. I know at some point Nina has to take Gerda Parem, but I can't remember if it's in this one or if it's at the beginning of Crooked Kingdom. I think it's in this one. It's in this one. It's gotta be. And I feel like there was a little foreshadowing moment about that when Vanek was like explaining the Gerda Parem to Kaz, because Kaz mentioned something about like not wanting to know what it would be like if a Heartrender took Gerda Parem, and obviously Nina is a Heartrender, so that has to happen in this book. I just can't remember specifically what happens, but I'm so intrigued to continue reading this book and see what else I forgot. But so far I feel like I'm potentially enjoying this read more than the first one, just because I am more familiar with everything. But I'm actually going to go take a shower now, and I may or may not come back to reading this when I'm done. But so far, having a good time. This is so funny to me. Oh, Matthias. Matthias, Matthias, Matthias. I honestly forgot how Wylan was introduced in the book, because in the show he doesn't come in until season 2. But he's kind of like this person in the background that Kaz has kind of been taking care of, I guess, making sure that nothing happens to him. And he's like their demolitions dude, but in the book he's not like a great demolitions dude, and Jesper keeps like poking fun at him a little bit. Kaz tells Jesper to keep Wylan out of trouble, and he's like, why me? You're unlucky enough to be in my line of sight. And then Kaz tells Wylan that he can also keep an eye on Jesper, and then, you know, basically make sure that he spends this money on bullets, not vets. And then Jesper is like, I don't need a nursemaid. More like a chaperone, but if you want him to wash your nappies and tuck you in at night, that's your business. I just love that this is like the beginning of Wylan and Jesper, because obviously they fall in love and they are adorable. Now, I don't remember if they fall in love in this book or if it's in book 2. I honestly cannot remember, but I love that this is how it begins. I love Kaz so much. You can't spend his money if you're dead. I'll acquire expensive habits in the afterlife. Stop. This whole part where Nej is recalling something that her dad used to tell her. And it says, many boys will bring you flowers, but someday you'll meet a boy who will learn your favorite flower, your favorite song, your favorite sweet. And even if he is too poor to give you any of them, it won't matter, because he will have taken the time to know you as no one else does. Only that boy earns your heart. That is so sweet. I love this man. Sancta Alina. And Nej named one of her daggers after Alina. Stop. I love Kaz and Nej so much, and Lee Bardugo really gives us crumbs when it comes to them. Like, it's truly a slow burn of slow burns. I don't even think they kiss once, and I remember being a little disappointed by that. But like this moment where like he bundles her into his arms, and like he doesn't like to touch people, he doesn't like people touching him, but like he's holding her against his chest, and she says, I don't want to die. I'll do my best to make other arrangements for you. And then he says, keep talking right, that don't slip away from me, but it's what I do best. Stop. I don't know why I thought this happened so much later in the story, but it has happened, everyone. It has happened. Kaz wiped the knife clean, returned it to his sleeve, and drove his gloved fingers into Uman's eye socket. He shrieked and twitched as Kaz yanked out his eyeball, its base trailing a bloody root. Blood gushed over his face. I love it. I love it. I don't know why that's the one thing that's stuck in my brain about this book, but I love it. I don't know how to explain it. The way that Kaz just loses his ever-loving mind when Inej is like about to die. Like, her life is threatened, she's bleeding out, Nina is trying to heal her, and he just loses his mind. Like, obviously he just ripped that dude's eyeball out and he just threw him overboard, and he tells Wyland, I'm not in a very rational mood. Like, he just loses his mind because Inej is in danger. I love it. The Ravkan Civil War had erupted when she was still a student at the Little Palace, and she and her classmates had been forced to go into hiding. Nina was one of the students. Oh my goodness, so this is like years later. I knew I remembered him being mentioned. Nikolai. I remember getting excited about that when I first read this because that was a name that I recognized because I knew everybody loved him, so now I have more reason to be excited because I also love him. Nina thought of the look on his face when he'd set Inej down on the table. He was the same Kaz, cold, rude, impossible, but beneath all that anger she thought she'd seen something else too. Or maybe she was just a romantic. Matthias telling Nina about his dreams when he was in Hellgate? Stop. You always hated my laugh. I loved your laugh, Nina, and your fierce warrior's heart. I might have loved you too. Might have, once, before she had betrayed him. Those words carved an ache into her chest. And what did you do, Matthias? What did you do to me in your dreams? Everything. Matthias suspected that Brecker would drag the girl back from hell himself if he had to. Kaz loves Inej so much I could cry. If Pekka Rollins kills us all, I'm gonna get Wyland's ghost to teach my ghost how to play the flute just so that I can annoy the hell out of your ghost. Brecker's lips quirked. I'll just hire Matthias's ghost to kick your ghost's ass. My ghost won't associate with your ghost, Matthias said primly. Oh my god, my babies. Is this referencing Tolia? There's a heartrender at the Little Palace who can recite epic poetry for hours. I'm pretty sure that's Tolia. Who else could it be? I love Kaz so much and how he is with Inej. Because right now Inej is talking to Nina about why she doesn't have like the tattoo to be like a part of the dregs or whatever. And Nina says, I didn't think it was optional. Technically it isn't. I know some people don't understand, but Kaz told me. He said it was my choice, that he wouldn't be the one to mark me again. I love him. But then this whole paragraph, but he had, in his own way, despite her best intentions, feeling anything for Kaz Brecker was the worst kind of foolishness. She knew that. But he'd been the one to rescue her, to see her potential. He'd bet on her, and that meant something, even if he'd done it for his own selfish reasons. I love them. So Kaz finally approached Inej after like 2 days or something of her like being awake after her injuries. And he's asking her about the incinerator, like if she can climb it. She's like, you know I can do it, Kaz, and you know I'm not going to refuse, so why ask? Because I've been looking for an excuse to talk to you for 2 days. He loves her so much, and it makes me so giddy. Stop. I feel like crying. So Kaz just admitted to Inej that Pekka Rollins killed his brother, which he hasn't told anybody yet, and she says that she'll pray for him, whatever. And he says, I don't want your prayers. What do you want then? And then he's like, the old answers came easily to mind. Money, vengeance, Geordie's voice, in my head silenced forever. But a different reply roared to life inside him, loud, insistent, and unwelcome. You, Inej, you. Genya! Oh, love her. I just finished reading the scene where Matthias is remembering him and Nina and Ferda. I find it so hard to say these words out loud when I just read them over and over, but they're in his homeland, and he's remembering when they saved each other's lives and they had to like get in the little like lodge together to keep each other warm. And I just need to mention that the way that they brought this scene to life in the show was so perfect. I couldn't remember like specifics of it when I was watching the show from the book, at least not the second time. I don't remember how I felt the first time I watched the show because I did watch it shortly after reading the book, but like they did it so well. Like some lines are directly in the scene and the vibes of it are so good, and as I'm reading it I can perfectly like picture the scene from the show. It's just so good. I love Matthias and Nina a lot, which is why Crooked Kingdom is so painful, and I'm just loving that like it's so clear that Matthias has feelings for Nina, but because of the way that he was like raised and the things that he was taught about Grisha, he's really struggling and battling with these feelings, and it's just so fun to read about. I can't remember how like it progresses. I know like where we end up, but I don't remember how we get from point A to point B with his feelings, like how he comes to terms with them. So I'm really looking forward to continuing reading. I'm gonna finish this chapter hopefully, and then I'm actually gonna go get a haircut, but I'm thoroughly enjoying myself right now. Okay, I'm on page 240 now, and we're at the part where they find the pyre of burnt Grisha, and Nina is remembering her time with Matthias back when they were like fighting for their lives or whatever, and it's the part where they're like in the snow and he admits to liking her and she's like poking him and teasing him, and then she falls through the ice and he saves her and they like introduce themselves properly. This scene, I forgot, it's basically the same as it is in the show, and I just adore that. Like that scene was so good in the show. They adapted it perfectly. We are now like, I'm pretty sure over halfway through the book, and I'm having a great time. I wish I was reading this a bit faster. I have been reading it for many days now, reading it on and off, but I'm having a great time. They're making their way to the ice court, and honestly like I don't remember a whole lot of things. I believe I remember how the book ends, but I don't really remember how we get there. I'm now about to begin part 4, which is called The Trick to Falling, and Nina and Matthias, they just made a deal with each other that Bo Buyer is not to leave the ice court alive, which means that everybody is not going to get their money. Matthias is not going to get his pardon because they believe that it's just too dangerous for Bo Buyer to like be free and for, you know, Gerda Prem to like grow, because they did just see a fabricator Grisha have like squalor abilities, and he was like a flying, and that's just very like unnatural. It's not supposed to be like that. I found the whole concept of Gerda Prem so interesting, and I'm just so excited to get to the ice court. We are now going to read an Inej chapter. I love Inej, and I just things are ramping up, things are getting intense. I love these characters. I don't remember exactly what happens with Matthias and Nina in the rest of this book, but it seems like they're kind of warming back up to each other a little bit, finding some common ground. They're finally agreeing on something, and so I'm just so curious to see how the rest of this plays out, because obviously I can't remember anything. I don't think you can tell, but I'm crying. I'm on page 276, and I really like did not expect to cry. I don't think I cried the first time I read this book. I know I cried for Crooked Kingdom. But we just got to a Kaz chapter where he finally like recounts how Geordie died, and the whole, what's the sickness called? The whole firepox, the Queen's Lady Plague broke out, and they were put onto like the sick boats or whatever. And he had to use Geordie's body to help him float to get back to shore. And I just burst into tears. I did not think that that was going to affect me so bad upon a reread. I'm sure it affected me to some extent the first read. But like, poor little Kaz. Like, I knew it was coming, but I can't even imagine. I cannot even imagine what that would have felt like. Like being put on this sick boat because they thought that he was dead, and finding the strength to cry out that he's alive, but they can't hear him. They were everywhere. Legs and arms and stiff bellies, rotting limbs and blue-lipped faces covered in firepox sores. And then on the next page, when night came and the tide changed direction, Kaz forced himself to lay hands on Geordie's body. He was too frail to swim on his own, but with Geordie's help he could float. He held tight to his brother and kicked toward the lights of Ketterdam. He'd heard there were sharks in these waters, but he knew they wouldn't touch him. He was a monster now too. It's just so sad. I don't want to be here. This is so sad. Okay, so they've entered into the ice court as prisoners, like they've disguised themselves as prisoners, and Kaz glimpsed Nej disappearing into the opposite arch with the other female prisoners. He felt a twinge in his chest, and with a disturbing jolt he realized it was panic. She'd been the one to wake him from his stupor in the cart. Her voice had brought him back from the dark. It had been the tether he gripped and used to drag himself back to some semblance of sanity. Stop it right now. We just found out that Jesper is a fabricator. I couldn't remember how that came about in the book. It's completely different in the show, but that's to be expected because we didn't get to see the ice court in Shadow and Bone, so they had to like bring it up a different way, but I love it. Okay, so it's been a hot minute since I updated the vlog. It's been a couple of weeks. I got sick, was dealing with some things, so I wasn't even reading or anything, but we're back now. I'm on page 300 of Six of Crows, and I just read a Nina chapter, and she found these cells that were very clearly made to hold Grisha, and that was such a hard part to read, and her wondering like were Grisha tortured here, and just like wondering what happened to them, and talking about how she always dreamed of going to the ice court as a spy, but now she just wants to be gone, and she basically realizes that she really wants to go back to Ravka. She doesn't even want to be in Ketterdam anymore. She doesn't feel safe anywhere except for Ravka, and that was just such a hard part to read. Like I literally got full body chills, but now there's an alarm going off, so I think things are about to get really intense. She tried to find Kaz where they were supposed to meet and she couldn't find him, so I don't remember where Kaz is or what happens from this point forward, but the next chapter is Nej, and I believe we left Nej having to climb up the incinerator or something. I can't remember because it has been a couple of weeks since I picked this book up, but I'm intrigued to continue, but that part was so hard to read. Why is this whole scene of Nej wearing Kaz's gloves feel so incredibly intimate? Like this feels more intimate than anything that they could possibly do. Like if they had a kissing scene or anything like that. Like this feels 10 times more intimate than that. Like, are you kidding me? She felt curiously guilty as she slid the supple black leather over her hands, as if she had crept into his rooms without his permission, read his letters lay down in his bed. Stop it right now. This whole scene of Nej climbing up the incinerator and her slippers melting, and so she's having a hard time finding her footing and like keeping herself steady. So intense, so scary, and like her poor beloved shoes, like she loves those shoes so much. And then she's just angry at Kaz for getting them to do this insane job and agreeing to do it. And then she says, and why had she? To pay off her debt? Or because despite all good sense and better intentions, she'd let herself feel something for the bastard of the barrel. Okay, so I just read the scene where Kaz goes to the menagerie and tells Nej that Prohaskell has paid off her indenture and that he wants her to be a part of the dregs, and it goes into like the next part after the scene break, and Kaz said like never sneak up on me again, and she admits that she tried to sneak up on him plenty of times but it never worked, and she says it was as if once Kaz had seen her, he'd understood how to keep seeing her. And I don't know why, but I love that so much. It feels so romantic to me. I don't know why. I'm obsessed. I love Kaz and Nej so much. And I feel the first time I read these books, I was disappointed by the lack of like obvious romance between the two of them. It like never escalated into something like real and tangible, I guess. Like they never became a couple. I don't think they ever kissed or anything. And I remember constantly waiting for that to happen. But this time I'm just kind of enjoying all the more subtle little moments between the two of them and the other displays of their affection that are not as obvious and as like in your face, I guess. And I'm hoping that that continues, especially knowing how these books go and knowing that the relationship never really progresses in that way. I'm hoping that I will have an even greater appreciation and I won't leave the books feeling disappointed in that regard. I just love them so much, so I'm gonna get back to Nej climbing the incinerator, which is just so stressful. Kaz just found Pekka Rollins' cell in the ice court and he intends to get his revenge for his brother Geordie. I genuinely do not remember how this plays out. I obviously know that Pekka Rollins plays a huge part in Crooked Kingdom, and it's kind of like everything that obviously happens at the end of this book catapults the second book, but I don't remember specifically how this scenario plays out. Obviously Pekka leaves alive, but we're now at part 5. The ice does not forgive. Very ominous sounding. I've missed this book so much. I never read when I'm sick. The brain fog is just too intense and I just can never get the motivation to read. And I was sick for like a week and a half, and just like not feeling motivated to pick up a book, and definitely not motivated to film. So I've missed this book so much. Like, I thought about it so often while I was sick. So I'm just so happy to be reading it and hopefully finishing it very, very soon. We only have 2 parts left in the book. This part and the next one, and then we are done. Okay, so Kaz just told the others that he went looking for Pekka Rollins, and he said that he couldn't find him, which obviously we know is a lie, and Jesper doesn't believe him, rightfully so, that the blood on his shirt came from a run-in with a guard. But what happened? Did he just beat up Pekka? Does he think Pekka's dead? I don't know. I'm sure we find out at some point, but I think they are all justifiably mad at Kaz, because what I love about their plan so much for the ice court is that they really all depend on each other's parts going well. Like, all of their parts, everything that they're doing depends on each other. Like, if one person messes up, it could all go to hell. So they all have to make sure that they do their job and they do it well, and Kaz really jeopardized the whole operation because Nina ended up having to look for Kaz, which is what caused her to be in the stairwell, to run in with guards, to cause the alarm to go off, which really could have just like messed everything up. So I think them being mad at him is very justified, even though we all know that Kaz has huge trauma in terms of his brother and Pekka Rollins. So I also know that his like revenge is justified as well. But you know what? At least he admits that he screwed up. I can totally picture the actor for Jesper saying this line, and now I'm just mad all over again that we are not getting the 6 of Crows spin-off. If any of you survive, make sure I have an open casket. The world deserves a few more moments with this face. He would have delivered that line so beautifully. And Nej talking about Matthias to Nina, saying he doesn't approve of anything about you, but when you laugh, he perks up like a tulip in fresh water. Nina snorted. Matthias the tulip. The big, brooding, yellow tulip. So I don't remember what happens. I don't remember what this means. But this guy was like the person that put Nina as like a captor on the Druskella thing. I don't even remember, it's been so long since I read that part of the book, but like he was like Matthias's like commander dude, and he's alive. I don't remember what this means for the story. Oh no. I have just under 100 pages left in this book, and I know things are about to get really crazy. Jesper and Wylan just set off the black protocol and the really loud scary alarm went off, so things are about to happen. I'm very excited to remember all the details of the end of this book because I only remember very vague things. But what I'm loving about what Leigh Bardugo is doing with the like formatting of this book, I guess, I feel like she made a very intentional choice regarding the pacing. I feel like earlier in the book the chapters were a bit longer, more drawn out, but now that we are in this very intense part of the story and we're obviously following a lot of different characters' point of views, the chapters have gotten much shorter. Like, some of them are just a couple of pages, and it's really setting up this kind of fast-paced forward momentum, and it's just like really giving that like sense of immediacy and that sense of urgency that I feel like the characters would be feeling, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm just thoroughly impressed with what she's doing with this book. I am going to try to read as much of this as possible today so that I can hopefully at the latest finish it tomorrow so I can finally start Crooked Kingdom. But yeah, we're about to get to an Inez chapter, and the last time we saw her she was taken by the guards because she was trying to sneak in with Nina through the menagerie, and they kind of flagged her as being suspicious because of her like fake tattoo. So I'm very intrigued to see what happens with her next, because I know what happens with her at the very end of the book, but I don't remember what happens in between that. So I just read a Nina chapter that was of her with the broom dude, the Druskella like commander dude, and they like went away and she thought that she was playing him and they were like gonna go off and like do the menagerie things, but he played her and he ended up locking her in a cell, and then Matthias comes out, and I remember that shocked me to my core the first time I read this book. At least I'm pretty sure I remember being shocked by it and being like, oh my god, he betrayed them. And still, I'm not gonna lie, for a split second there I was like, oh my god, he betrays them. I know he doesn't. And I'm now in his chapter, and I was gonna update at the end of his chapter, but there was just this little paragraph of Matthias's like inner monologue that I just have to read out to you. I feel like this is truly where Matthias kind of rejects the Druskella kind of like lifestyle and the mindset that they all have and that they're taught from the beginning. He says, Nina had wronged him, but she'd done it to protect her people. She'd hurt him, but she'd attempted everything in her power to make things right. She'd shown him in 1,000 ways that she was honorable and strong and generous and very human, maybe more vividly human than anyone he'd ever known. And if she was, then Grisha weren't inherently evil. They were like anyone else, full of the potential to do great good and also great harm. To ignore that would make Matthias the monster. Absolutely. I love that whole paragraph so much. And this whole paragraph is definitely like part of the reason why I love Matthias so much, is him having that strength and that courage to kind of question everything that he's been taught and everything he's believed up until meeting Nina, and rejecting it and becoming a better person. I think so many people who have kind of like hateful ideas like this, like hating against a certain group of people, they so often just don't listen to what anyone has to say and they don't try to learn and be better. But he doesn't. He learns to be better, and I love that about him. Nina and Matthias are too cute. If we make it out of here alive, I'm gonna kiss you unconscious. A grin split his beautiful face. I love them. Oh my god. Crooked Kingdom is gonna hurt so bad. Okay, I have 60-ish pages left, so I think I'm actually going to try to finish this book tonight. This last bit of the book is just so intense, and it's going by so much quicker than the rest of the book. For some reason, I haven't been able to read this in like really large chunks. I just think because everything is so intense right now and the chapters are relatively short, it's just making for like quick reading. But we just got to the part where they found out that Bo Yul is dead and his son is left in his wake trying to recreate the formula. So they just kind of rescued him, and he exploded the lab that he was in and all of his supplies. But if my memory serves correctly, either he takes some of Dirtaparem with him or something happens, because Nina ends up taking Dirtaparem at the end of this book. I just don't remember where they get it and how that happens. But the Druskella found Matthias and Nina and the son trying to escape, and they were trying to capture them, but then Kaz came and rescued them. Things are just very, very intense right now, so I definitely think that I'm going to be finishing this book tonight because I don't want to wait any longer. Why is this the cutest, kind of like most romantic thing in the world? Kaz is remembering this moment with Inej, and he said, for a moment Kaz was a boy again, sure that there was magic in this world. Like, are you kidding me? I actually have tears in my eyes right now. Stop. The ache in his lungs was unbearable. He needed to tell her what? That she was lovely and brave and better than anything he deserved. That he was twisted, crooked, wrong, but not so broken that he couldn't pull himself together into some semblance of a man for her. That without meaning to, he'd begun to lean on her, to look for her, to need her near. He needed to thank her for his new hat. Kaz! And now it's time for the final part of the book. The son of the Dirtaparem dude did have a little pouch of the Dirtaparem, and I forgot why Nina took it, and we just got to the part where she took it. So basically they all reunited with each other, all the crows, and they got into the tank that Inej, Wylan, and Jesper took, and they were on their way to escaping, but they ran into a bunch of Fjerdan like troops, and they had a Heartrender who was very clearly using Dirtaparem, and Kaz admits that he is out of tricks and they're just gonna have to fight their way through it, fight to the death essentially. But then Nina says that she is not out of tricks and she takes Dirtaparem, and it is so emotional when Matthias begs her not to take it. Stop. And I know it's only going to get worse, especially as the Dirtaparem kind of like leaves her body and she starts craving more. Like, I remember that being a really hard thing to read about. I can't remember if it comes about at the end of this book or if we see it more so at the beginning of Crooked Kingdom, but that was so hard. Like, she just made a huge sacrifice and took a huge risk for them. I love the crows so much. Okay, obviously I hate that Nina is on Dirtaparem right now, but I can hear the change in Kaz's breathing when he looks at you. It catches every time like he's never seen you before. Stop. this was in this book because the scene was in the show. It was in a different setting, but it was there. And it's like word for word. Stop. Stay in Ketterdam. Stay with me. What would be the point? I want you to stay. I want you to. I want you. How will you have me, Kaz? Fully clothed, gloves on, your head turned away so our lips can never touch. I will have you without armor, Kaz Brecker, or I will not have you at all. There's a tear. There's a tear right there. Like, I thought this was in Crooked Kingdom. I did not think this was in this book. I wonder how they were planning in the show to make this plot happen, because they mention the Ice Court at the very end of Shadow and Bone season 2, leading into, hopefully, the Six of Crows spinoff that unfortunately we are not getting. But like, this scene happens at the end of season 2, and she goes off on Nikolai's ship. So how are they planning on bringing her back to be a part of the Ice Court heist? I don't know. I wonder how they would have done that. I'm so mad that we're never gonna know. We're not gonna see it. Because I know that the actress for Inej said that she got to see some of the scripts that they had written for the spinoff, and she cried. And I'm just so mad that we're never gonna see that. I'm going to get my girl. Cass, my girl. I don't know why, but my girl always gets me. I have finished Six of Crows, finally. But I loved this book. I just adore these characters so much. I, as we all know, am truly a character-driven reader. The plot could be practically non-existent as long as I love the characters and I'm rooting for them and I'm interested in them. Obviously, I'd like for there to be a plot too, but if I had to choose one over the other, characters all the way. I just adore these characters and I love the way that they interact with each other. So I pretty much remembered the ending of this book, save for a couple of details. I didn't fully remember that Van Eck kind of like betrayed them and had like really no plans of giving them the 30 million Kruga. He basically just wanted Kaz and them to get Yul Brynner because he wanted Jurda Prem for his own plans, his own gain. He had no intention of like eradicating, like getting rid of Jurda Prem. He wanted to use it, but obviously it doesn't work out. Wylan is disguised as Yul Brynner's son because he knew that Kaz couldn't use him as leverage with his dad. And then at the end, Van Eck said, you know, kill everybody but Brecker. But then poor Kaz made the mistake of looking at Inej in his fear for her safety, which then alerted Van Eck to his weakness, which is Inej. And so he said, forget that, leave everybody, take the girl, which is how Inej gets captured at the end of this book. And then we end off with Kaz kind of having a plan percolating in his brain, and the last chapter is actually in Pekka Rollins' point of view, but we find out what happened in the Ice Court when Kaz confronted him, which was basically just letting him out, letting him be free, letting him go home, because this was not the way that Kaz wanted Pekka to die. He wanted to take care of that himself, so he let him go free, and it's like, your time will come, like you will pay. I do think I enjoyed this significantly more this time. I'm kind of curious to go back and rewatch the live show that me and Alyssa did for Best Season Books when we read this, because I would love to know more about my thoughts when I first read it, because memory is really bad. But I do think I enjoyed it more this time around, which is really pleasing. So, successful reread of Six of Crows. And now I can finally move on to Crooked Kingdom, which I own a copy for. I am still in shock that I own this book, like with the red sprayed edges. I'm so happy. I didn't know if I would ever be able to own this copy. I'm just so excited to get into this book because my initial read of these books, I enjoyed this one more. I'm just so excited to get into this book and remember everything. I'm also scared. I'm terrified because I know how this book ends. And I'm scared to cry about it again because it tore me apart the first time, and especially now that I feel even more connected to these characters than I did the first time through rereading Six of Crows and watching the show a couple of times and being obsessed with the Crows. I just know that that ending is gonna hurt all the more, especially now that I have a certain actor to pair with a certain character that reaches a certain demise. It's gonna be painful. It's gonna be painful. Now I'm just scared. I've like psyched myself out. I'm so scared. But I'm thinking I'm going to start this book this weekend, although I have some other plans that are going to take precedence over this. But I am hoping to read this over the course of the next week. Hopefully I can read it faster than Six of Crows. I'm so nervous. I am so excited for the Wylan and Jesper romance to really get going. They are one of my favorites. But he's sitting there wondering what he's doing there with Kaz, but he says that he was here for Inej. She'd saved their lives more than once, and he wasn't going to forget that. He was here because he desperately needed the money. And if there was another reason, a tall, lanky reason, with a too strong taste for games of chance, he wasn't going to think about that right now. I don't remember at what point in the book they start to like actually go out, but I'm so excited. And also I just have to say I love being in Wylan's head, and I love that he has a point of view in this book. I love him. This moment's in the show when Wylan asks why they say no mourners, no funerals, and Kaz says that they like to keep their expectations low. We just got a Jenya and David mention, and Nikolai. That's our second or third Nikolai mention in this book. We love to see it. I am now 50 pages into Crooked Kingdom, and Kaz and the rest of the crows have been hatching their plan to get Inej back. They've kind of been setting things in motion, and I think they're leaving in a day to try to go get Inej, but not too much has happened besides them kind of like setting things into motion. There's a guy named Smeet who I believe works with Van Eck, works for him or something like that. They hatched this whole plan to distract him while Kaz and Wylan and Matthias work together to break into his home and try to find records to try to figure out where they are keeping Inej. So it kind of really does just get like right into things, which I appreciate. I'm excited to get into the meat of the story because, like I've said, I do think that I enjoy this book more than Six of Crows, so I'm hoping that still rings true. But it's getting a bit late and I'm finding my attention waning, so I think I'm gonna put it down for the night and come back to it tomorrow. This paragraph is breaking my heart. So we are with Inej now, and she's eating one of her meals, and she's wondering where the crows are, where Kaz is. And then she said, above everything else, Kaz was practical. Why would he come for her when he could walk away from Van Eck with the most valuable hostage in the world? It breaks my heart that she thinks Kaz wouldn't come for her. Okay, I'm on page 105 now of Crooked Kingdom, and things have been happening. So Jesper went to go meet with his dad, who came to see him because the bank was calling about the loan that Jesper took for university that he obviously doesn't go to anymore. And Jesper went to go meet him, and his father was obviously being used for bait by either Van Eck or Pekka Rollins. I don't think we know. So they were all shot at, but they got out alive, and now they put up Jesper's dad in a hotel because Kaz has some sort of plan. I don't remember what it is, so we'll see what happens with that. Then we switched to Inej, who is still being held captive, and Van Eck thinks that he got the upper hand on Kaz, and he knows that Kaz and the crows were coming to rescue Inej, and so he has all these guards set up, and he's like, haha, like I outsmarted Kaz. Kaz thinks he's the smartest person in Ketterdam or in the barrel. I've got all these guards and I'm gonna get what I want. But then, no. Kaz pulls one over on him because Kaz truly is the smartest. And he basically took Van Eck's wife, who is currently pregnant, and then left a note saying, meet me at this place at this time. And then Inej just breaks out in laughter, and it's just like, you are so stupid. And she's like no longer afraid of him because he did threaten to break her legs a few chapters ago, and she's no longer afraid of him because she's like, you know what, Kaz is gonna come for me, and if you hurt me or you do something, then Kaz is gonna do something to your wife and baby, so you better be careful. And I just love that because Kaz is a mastermind. He's a genius, and I'm having so much fun with this book and with these characters, and I'm in no way prepared for the rest of the events. of this book. Can't wait for Inej to actually be rescued so that we can have her interact with the rest of the crows again, because I've been really missing her interactions with Kaz. Also, side note, Wylan is still looking like the son of Yulbire, and I just can't remember if he ever gets to look like himself again, because Nina did it when she was on Jur de Parem. And so she doesn't have like the same powers that she did when she was on Jur de Parem. And I'm like, does he just look like this for the rest of the book? Because I genuinely cannot remember. I don't know, I just wanted to pose that question, so hopefully I can remember as I read to look out for that and talk about it. But Inej is going to get rescued soon, and I'm very excited about it. Do you know what Van Eyck's problem is? No honor, said Matthias. Rotten parenting skills, said Nina. Receding hairline, offered Jesper. I love them. If anyone didn't like the scene in Six of Crows where Kaz ripped out the guy's eyeball, then they're not gonna like this scene. Nina shoved the revolver directly into the shoe woman's eye socket and squeezed the trigger. The blast didn't just take her eye, but most of the top of her skull. For a moment, she still stood, clutching Nina, a gaping mess of bone, soft pink brain matter, and shards of metal where the rest of her face should have been. Then she crumpled. Inej is back with the crows, and their reactions to like properly seeing her for the first time is too precious. Like hugging her and Nina refusing to let go of her. Like, stop, I'm going to sob. Inej just asked Kaz if he would have come for her if Van Eyck had broken her legs, and he said, I would come for you. I would come for you, and if I couldn't walk, I'd crawl to you, and no matter how broken we were, we'd fight our way out together, knives drawn, pistols blazing, because that's what we do. We never stop fighting. Oh my god, I love them so much. I love that they flat out say what happens to Alina in the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and I still read that whole trilogy not knowing what happened at the end. They said it right here. We see Zoya in this book? What? I did not remember this at all. There was not a single part of me that remembered this. This is like our first real character cameo between the two series. This is so exciting. I just got to the part where Wyland is thinking about how he came to be in the barrel and how he kind of wishes that he could tell Jesper how he came to be in the barrel, how it was not necessarily a conscious decision. He didn't choose that life, but instead it was his dad sending him away, supposedly, to go to this music school. But on the ship, on the way there, the guys that his dad hired to help escort him to this music school were actually there to try and kill him, to make him disappear from the world, so that people would eventually forget that Van Eyck ever had a son, because he was that embarrassed of him for not being able to read, for being illiterate. And it was just so heartbreaking. Like, my poor little Wylan, he's like one of the sweetest little creatures, and I'm also just picturing the actor for Wylan, who is also just such a sweet little cinnamon bun, and it breaks my heart. I forgot that Wylan's mom was alive. My goodness, him and Jesper just went to go visit her at the cemetery. They're not at a cemetery. She's alive. I completely forgot, and I don't remember what this means. But like, she's alive. Oh, stop. His mom keeps painting him. I'm going to sob. Like, Van Eyck, you're on my hit list, sir. I wish you all could have just heard the gasp that I let out, but Genya is in this book. Are you kidding me? I literally read this book, and then I'm pretty sure almost immediately watched Shadow and Bone, and I don't think not once did it click that Zoya and Genya are in this book. What is wrong with me? Matthias is so cute trying to explain his feelings towards Nina to her, but he's so terrible at it. But he says, I needed a cataclysm to shake me from the life I knew. You were an earthquake, a landslide. I, she said, planting a hand on her hip, am a delicate flower. I love them so much. Finally, Nina and Matthias. They're so freaking cute. Like, oh, I love them. Like, stop. Tamar is here too. Are you kidding me? I love this character development with Matthias in this book especially. They're currently battling the Dime Alliance, Matthias, Jesper, and Kue. And Kue is an Bernie, and so he's doing like fire and stuff. That was a really weird way to say that. And Matthias, his first thought is unnatural. So it says unnatural, a voice clamored in his head. No, thought Matthias, miraculous. And I think it's really, really important, this distinction, that obviously what he was taught growing up and was like drilled into him. I think it makes sense that that was his first reaction, but then he corrected himself because now he knows better. And I just love that. Like little moments like this just really show the growth that he has gone through. And I really love Matthias as a character, and I am not ready for what happens at the end of this book. Okay, so I know that this is disgusting and we don't condone murder, but this is a fictional book. It's fine. In this one case, we forgive Kaz, okay? So we've just seen Kaz and his interaction with Pekka Rollins, and Pekka said that he had something special planned for the Wraith. So Kaz says, to hell with revenge, to hell with his schemes. If Rollins had done something to Inej, Kaz would paint a stave with his entrails. He just loves Inej so much. I'm going to cry. Oh my god, I love the way that Lee Bardugo has the other characters describing the love between Inej and Kaz. Nina glanced from Inej to Kaz and saw they both wore the same expression. Nina knew that look. It came after the shipwreck when the tide moved against you and the sky had gone dark. It was the first sight of land, the hope of shelter, and even salvation that might await you on a distant shore. Oh my god. So that chapter I just read was very, very intense, and I have some thoughts. So it was just Nina's chapter, and it was her dealing with the Dime Lions and saving Inej from the wire, and she commanded a bunch of corpses to do the net to save Inej. She can control the dead. I vaguely remember this happening from the first time I read this book, but like, what is going on with her powers because of Prem? I have no idea. I don't know what happens with it the rest of the book. I don't know if she gets better and goes back to normal. Like, what is happening with her magic? Wylan is my favorite little sweetie pie. Until this moment, Wylan hadn't quite understood how much they meant to him. His father would have sneered at these thugs and thieves, a disgraced soldier, a gambler who couldn't keep out of the red, but they were his first friends, his only friends, and Wylan knew that even if he'd had his pick of 1,000 companions, these would have been the people he chose. I'm gonna cry. I know I've said that so many times in this vlog, but I'm going to cry. Jesper and Wylan. They're so cute. I just wish that Wylan looked like himself, and I can't remember if he ever gets to look like himself again. That wasn't Wylan. How did I forget? That was not Wylan. I forgot how good that scene was between Kaz and Inej when he helps her fix up her bandages. Oh, the way that it was so intense and like emotionally charged, like they barely touched. Like it was just him fixing her wounds, like bandaging her wounds, and like the slightest touch of his lips to like her shoulder, I think, like the hollow of her neck maybe, but like, my god, there were so many emotions and Kaz was really going through it. I think this is possibly why this is my favorite between the two books, not necessarily because the plot in this one is better, because I don't know if it is or not, but like I've said before in this video, I care about the characters and their relationships with each other, and it just becomes so much more intense in this book, like the romantic relationships, but also just the friendships and all of the crows just realizing how much that they care for each other. It's so beautiful. I don't know if you can tell, but I have tears in my eyes because of Wylan and Jesper. When they were visiting with Wylan's mom, Jesper took one of her paintings of Wylan. You took this just because you thought it might come in handy. I told you, I like your stupid face. Sturmond is here? Nikolai? Why did nobody tell me? Why did nobody tell me? Stop it right now. I don't know how to recover from this. Okay, Here we go. They're actually kissing this time. Stop. Jesper's mind emptied. He wasn't thinking of what had happened before or what might happen next. There was only the reality of Wyland's mouth, the press of his lips, and the fine bones of his neck, the silky feel of his curls as Jesper cupped his nape and drew him nearer. This was the kiss he'd been waiting for. It was a gunshot. It was prairie fire. It was the spin of Maker's wheel. Jesper felt the pounding of his heart, or was it Wyland's, like a stampede in his chest, and the only thought in his head was a happy, startled, "Oh." Stop. How bad does my memory have to be for me to not remember that not only is Sturmond in this book, but Kaz knows that he's King Nikolai? I swear to God, I went from reading this book right into watching Shadow and Bone. So between reading this and watching Shadow and Bone getting to season 2, I forgot everything and forgot that he was in this book. How does that happen? Not like the humor or the banter with the CROWS is lacking in this series, but I've really missed Nikolai and his humor. So Kaz says, "So you're saying you'd make an excellent hostage. I suspect that the ransom for me would be considerably less than the price Kuwei has on his head. Really, it's a bit of a blow to my self-esteem." Okay, I feel like my memory is not failing me in this moment because I feel like this is on purpose. That Wyland is telling Vanek Kaz's plan. Because I feel like I remember being shocked by this and angered by this when I first read it. But I'm pretty sure it comes back around. And I'm pretty sure I was like, of course, why would I doubt Wyland? So I'm pretty sure this was planned. I'll check back in if I am right. And with that, we are on the final part of this book. Part 6, Action and Echo. I am simply unprepared. I knew it. Wyland wouldn't give that up. I'm so glad I remembered that because my gut reaction was to get upset again. But just like I said, it was all on purpose. Oh. I do not remember this. Kaz is one crazy, ruthless mother trucker. I love the scene in the show too. It's so good. So good. I just love that he did not let anybody in on this part of his plan with Pekka Rollins and the Kalish Prince. And I love that also we don't know. We never know what's going on. So everybody, including us, believes that he buried Pekka Rollins' son. Even Inej, she would never forgive him. But I know that it's okay because I've read this book and I remember and I watched the show. So I remember. But he was crazy for this. Such an iconic moment. You didn't do it. You didn't bury him. I've never even seen the kid. By tomorrow, a stranger's body would be ashes and the real Kuwei would be free to live his life without constantly looking over his shoulder. Ah, Kuwei. Knowing what's about to come, this is painful. He would be with Nina again, and maybe they could begin thinking about a future. Stop it right now. I'm gonna read right here for a little bit because I need to get my reaction to what's about to happen on camera. I'm not ready. Lee Bardugo, you must pay my therapy bills. We were all supposed to make it, said Wyland softly. Maybe that was naive, the protest of a rich merchant's son who'd only had a taste of barrel life. But Jasper realized he'd been thinking the same thing. Oh my god, I can't read through my tears. After all their mad escapes and close calls, he'd started to believe the six of them were somehow charmed, that his guns, Kaz's brains, Nina's wit, Inej's talent, Wyland's ingenuity, and Matthias's strength had made them somehow untouchable. They might suffer, they might take their knocks, but Wyland was right. In the end, they were all supposed to stay standing. No mourners, no funerals. Matthias deserved so much better. Stop. Cautiously, she let her knuckles brush against his, a slight weight, a bird's feather. He stiffened, but he didn't pull away. I'm not ready to give up on this city, Kaz. I think it's worth saving. I think you're worth saving. And then she felt his knuckles slide against hers. Then his hand was in her hand. His palm was pressed against her own. A tremor moved through him. Slowly he let their fingers entwine. Stop. He just got her a ship. And now they're holding hands and he's not wearing his gloves. This is the slow burn that I yearn for, but that I also hate, because why aren't they kissing? Kaz got Sturmont to find Inej's parents. Stop. We were robbed of this. In the Six of Crows spinoff. Are you kidding me? Kaz is obviously ruthless and he has his bad moments, but my god, when he cares about people, he really cares about them. Like, you're telling me the next chapter is about Pekka? So you're telling me that this is how it ends, with her seeing her parents? You know what, Lee Bardugo, I can forgive you for Matthias. For this scene alone. Okay, so last night I finished Crooked Kingdom. Oh, I love this book so much. I experienced so many feelings last night at the end of this book that I really needed the whole night to gather my feelings and my thoughts. Obviously this was a reread for me, we all know this, but we also all know that my memory is bad. So I feel like most of this book was like a discovery read for me. Like, it felt like reading it for the first time almost, with like just like the knowledge of the show and the things they put from this book into the show, which is just, it's truly so messy what they decided to do with the plot of this book in the show and the way that they like rearrange things from this book to fit into the show, which makes me just that much more curious to know what the Six of Crows spin-off was gonna look like, because it was gonna focus on the Ice Court plot, but like things from both of these were in the show. I just have so many questions and I'm so mad that we're like never gonna know the answers. But the end of this book destroyed me. Matthias's death hit, I feel like, just as hard the second time as it did the first time, especially since I didn't remember how he died. And just knowing that it was like a young Druskella, like a 14-year-old Druskella boy who killed him, and the whole time Matthias is like, I changed, I can help him change, I was just like him, and the boy just like doesn't listen and he just shoots him and he dies. It's just so sad. And like the way that Matthias found his way to Nina before he died was just so rude. And I remember the first time reading this book, I was like, oh, I'm so glad that Nina and Matthias found some sort of joy and some sort of happiness and peace together before this all happened. But it's so sad because like we know that he got shot, right? And if you're reading this for the first time, you don't know that he's gonna die, but they're like, what's taking Matthias so long? And then like he comes like immediately and he's like, I needed to see you again. Stop. He's like, all I wanted was to see you once more. And he said, go home to Ravka, Nina. Be free as you were meant to be. Be a warrior as you always have been. Just save some mercy for my people. There has to be a Fjerda we're saving. Promise me. I promise. The words were more sob than sound. And just knowing that like she takes him back to Fjerda to bury him and like lay him to rest. Depressing. I also feel like I remember there being more Jesper and Wyland in this book, like them being a couple and them being together, but maybe that's just because I'm remembering the show and their romance goes way faster in the show than it does in the books. So I think I'm like confusing it with the show. I don't know, but I just have so many thoughts about this duology, and I definitely think I can say that I enjoyed it more the second time because I was able to enjoy Six of Crows more in particular, but I definitely like have a way bigger appreciation for this duology duology after rereading it. That brings us to the end of this video. I'm sure it was a long one. Comment down below a black heart emoji if you did make it to the end, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a huge thumbs up. Also comment down below and let me know your thoughts on the Six of Crows duology. Let me know your thoughts on how they integrated these books into the Shadow and Bone show. I'd love to know, particularly like the Crooked Kingdom plot lines. Subscribe if you guys have not yet already, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!